neighbor. I am the Martian ambassador.
Des Moines and all of Central Iowa, welcome to Mac's World Live. Mac's World is your world. Every day we talk about the issues and topics that matter most to you. And as always, it's your voice we want to hear in Mac's World. So join the conversation by calling 515-244-0077. And now, here's the host of Mac's World Live, J. Michael McCoy.
6 minutes after 4, 21st day of March in the Lord's year 2016. J. Michael McCoy along with Chris Roloff, Bob Monster at the Cat in the Hat watching the chat, Mike, who's our new producer, and Ryan. Ryan's not, we're not sure you're permanently leaving us, right? We are sure that you're permanently leaving? Probably not? Okay, I'm firing Ryan on Friday at 5 o'clock. Stick around, it'll be fun. No, Ryan has got an opportunity to better himself. He's actually trying to put money away to go to seminary, and Chris won't pay him anything. You know, I pay him what I can. You know, I trade in my own clothing to the clothing store, and I give plasma, and you know, I drive a car that's like 10 years old, and I do what I can for Ryan, but it's not enough. So he's leaving us. He's going on to the big plasma store in the sky, Microsoft. And but he'll still be around. I think he'll still be around because we have to finish Jesus Calling for my wife. We got to do that sometime before you go or right after you go or sometime. We have to do that. When you move your lips back there, it doesn't help me because you don't have a microphone on. You have a microphone, you just choose not to use it.
All right. So I wasn't listening. I've been talking to Mike back here.
Oh, I said we have to do Jesus Calling for my wife before you leave.
Yep.
Okay. He didn't hear anything I said. All right, so we've got new producers being trained. All right, all this week we're going to focus on Holy Week, and right now we're kind of focused on a comparison that we've got, Chris, in what's going on in this country with protesters and some violence. And Jesus faced the same thing this week, this very week, 2,000 and whatever years ago. And so we're going to talk about that. But I love to feature people who are going on missions. And I've got a gentleman on the line who is getting ready to go on a mission. Are you there?
Yes, Mac, I am.
How are you, sir?
Doing good.
Now, tell me your name again and where you're going.
My name is Jeff Lee, and I'm going to Nueva Concepcion, that's the way I would say it, in Guatemala.
Guatemala. And you know Randy and Jill King.
Yes. I've known them for years.
Because that's how you came to me. And quite frankly, when Jill says jump, I say how high. So she said, I've got this friend on that's going on a trip. And so why are you so passionate? Well, first of all, is this your first mission trip overseas?
This is really my second mission trip overseas. I went to this specific area back in 2012 with my brother, Mark Lee. And so this is the second one. He's actually, my brother and his wife, Kelly, are down there working on planting a church. They actually physically moved to this area in Guatemala at the end of January.
They are?
Yeah, they are living there.
Well, are you going there too to live?
I'm going. I am on the stateside aspect of this. I'm working on building teams to go down to help them build, as well as minister to the Guatemalan people of that area.
All right, so tell me why you're passionate about this or any... Well, let's talk about this mission, because the first mission you went on was also associated with this?
Yes.
All right, so why are you passionate about this?
Well, I mean, you know, once you go down there and you see the Guatemalan people and you see a thirst and a hunger for the gospel, you know, the first night we were down there, we actually, a patriarch in the community actually killed a cow and served it up and invited a few of his close relatives, which amounted to be about 500 people came to hear my brother preach. He's the pastor, as well as then we handed out New Testaments in Spanish, and everybody, there's just a hunger and a thirst for the gospel. I guess it's hard to really.
Did you say you were speaking Spanish?
No, we have an interpreter down there.
Oh, all right. And I understand that you're actually sitting with Randy King, Jill's better half, and he's also going with you?
Yes, he is. Yes.
And Randy, is this the first mission trip you've been on, or have you been on others?
No, I went on one back when my daughter got married in Chile, and we went down there to do a wedding for her, but then also we built a big dormitory for a church down there. So this is my second trip, and actually, the reason I'm going is when I heard Mark come back to the church, when he came back to Cornerstone here in Boone, and told us that he was going to go down there for a pastorate, God just seemed to speak to me and say, "You're going to Guatemala, my first trip that we make up." That's why I'm going.
Well, it seems like you've got a nice consortium of people from central Iowa that are all going down to Guatemala. Now, I have to be honest, I don't know where that is. Is that, I'm assuming south of, it's in South America, or is it between the United States and South America?
It's immediately, it shares a southern border, Mexico's southern border.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. And is Christianity acceptable there, or are you kind of hiding and doing the underground church like Chinese are?
No. Christianity is very acceptable there. Again, they seem to, my brother's also working with the other pastors and kind of helping educate them on really how to understand the Bible, so they can, in fact, turn and teach it to the local people.
All right, hold on, back up. So Christian pastors in Guatemala are being taught by you and your brother and Randy on how to preach the gospel. Well,
being taught by my brother specifically. We're going down to help them build a church and school. But we're looking at a short-term mission trip. But we're going to help support him in his long-term mission goal of spreading the gospel there within the way the Concepcion.
So you don't have any factions, government officials, anti-Christians that you have to fight. You're basically just surrounded by people who are curious about this Jesus guy, and you're going to build a school and a church for them to worship and learn at.
Yes, that is correct.
That's awesome. How can people help you if they need to? They want to donate money, or they've got building supplies, or for heaven's sakes, maybe they want to come with you.
Well, one thing that we got going right now, Mac, is every Saturday at Cornerstone Church in Boone, we are doing a pancake feed. We're kind of working as well as a team that helps us get together. And so it's from 8 to 10:30. There at the church. We're just asking for a donation, but it helps build the team as well as a way for us to raise some funds. And, of course, any other funds could be directed right to the church itself.
So Cornerstone is kind of backing this up.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
So if we wanted to make a tax-deductible donation to you guys' mission, we could make it out to Cornerstone and then just put in the little line down there that it goes to Mark and Jeff Lee and Randy and the guys going down to Guatemala.
Yes, you could, Matt. Yes, you could.
And just, Chris, you said pancake feed, Jeff. And Chris, who was...
I got excited.
Yeah, he was buried in his phone like a teenager, texting his girlfriend or whoever. And he wrote on a piece of paper, he said, "Is it all I can eat?"
Yes, in fact, it is all you can eat.
Woo!
We got a little sausage on the side, of course.
When is this again?
Every Saturday morning from 8 to 10:30.
Yes, all the way through the 21st of May.
Wow. So you've got one
That's
more.
a lot of breakfast, man.
4, 5, 6, 7. That's 9 times you can go down there. And you realize if you and your wife and your daughter, you went down there and let's say you gave them $10 for the 3 of you. Mm-hmm. Your wife doesn't eat like you do, does she?
No.
Okay. So you could give them like $10 or $12. they'll probably make $6 or $8 on that. If you did that 10 times, they could make $60, and you could help these out, and you could get all you care to eat pancakes and sausage.
I'm for it. Where is Cornerstone Church again for our audience?
Boone.
In Boone.
It's at 111 6th Street here in Boone, right across from the high school football field.
There you go.
All right, so that's every Saturday morning from 8 to 10:30. But also, if you're just a person that cares about people who are going on missions and you want to financially support them, I mean, it's terrible expensive. They're going to build a school, they're going to build a church, and they need your funds. And if you can send $5, that's great. But if you could send $500, that'd be even better. You say, well, I can't send $5. That's all I've got. Well, then $5 a day, $5 a week. Just be a regular contributor to these guys and help them out and let them know you care. Jeff, it is a pleasure talking with you, and also to that handsome fellow Randy King there sitting to the right of you.
Thanks, Mac. Hey, thanks, Mac. Thanks.
Tell your brother thank you, and maybe when the two of you guys are in town together at the same time, we could have you in studio and talk about this a little bit.
That'd be awesome. That'd be good.
All right. All right, thank you very much, guys. That's Jeff Lee, his brother Mark, and he, along with Randy King and a lot of the folks from Cornerstone Church in Boone, 111 6th Street, they're raising money. They're going to build a church and a school down in Guatemala, and they need your help. Pancake feed, all you care to eat, 8 to 10:30 on Saturday mornings. It's a free will donation. Maybe that's where you could drop a $50 bill off. You know, load your car up with 4 guys, 4 kids, whatever. Take your grandkids up. Take my grandkids up, please. And, help them out. All right, when we come back, Jesus faced all kinds of bad crowds and protesting, much like we are in America right now. The gospel, it's Holy Week next.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
Hey everybody, I brought Northern Lights Pizza! And it's got Graziano sausage!
Rockton Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens. Rock on. This is Pat McManus for Rock and Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast.
21 minutes after 4 o'clock, 4:21 on the 21st day of March in the Lord's year 2016. I'm J. Michael McCoy. Welcome back. It's a it's a Monday afternoon. I'm excited about this week. It's Holy Week. It's one of my favorite weeks for a lot of different reasons. Number one, it was Palm Sunday. It was a week before Palm Sunday, 6 years ago, that my pastor gave his sermon on addiction. Have I ever told you about that?
No, I don't think you
Mike has a long iron or steel chain, and the links are probably 8 inches and very thick. Okay, it's not a plastic chain. And he'll walk up and down the altar, or we call it the football. I hate to say that because then people are, see, it's just not really a church, it's a pep rally. And he takes his hand and he waves it over the whole audience, and he says, pick 10 people sitting next to each other. Number 1, you're an alcoholic. Oh, by the way, number 2 and 3, you are too. You just don't know it. Number 4, that little pot you smoke on the weekend, or that prescription drug you overuse, you abuse, you're a drug addict. Number 5 and 6, you're having an affair, and stop it. It's absolutely not fair. 7, you spend too much time out at Prairie Meadows. Number 8, I know what you're doing with that computer. It's called pornography, and it's wrong. 9, why are you doing the things you're doing with children? It's unthinkable, and yet you sit in God's house. And 10, you're coming soon. Everybody gets addicted to something at one time or another. And every time he mentions one of these addictions, he takes that chain and he puts it around his neck. One more loop. And then he'll walk a little farther. And then he'll put another loop on. So he's got 6 or 7 loops, 8 loops, 9 loops. And I had been thinking about wanting to quit seriously drinking ever since the 1st of January, when a doctor told me, you got to quit. You just make a choice. Quit now or never quit, you'll die. And it was that sermon that made me go find some help within the church. And then eventually it was it would have been the Monday. No, it would have been, I think it was Easter Sunday that year. It would have been May 10th, whenever May 10th was in 2010. So this holy season, even though we're only in March, this holy season means a lot to me, because it was when Jesus brought me, and I didn't even know Jesus yet. It was when he brought me to my knees and said, I'm going to take away the last thing that I need to take from you before I can call you my own. Now, I didn't know that then. I look back now, and it's obvious that's what he did. Because as a guy who drank every night, my memory would just... It's funny, now I don't drink and my memory's bad again. But you can't really function as a disciple of Christ when you're waking up every morning trying to figure out what you did the night before. That doesn't work. In fact, I think Satan had a better hold on me than Christ ever did. Certainly not now in my life. But Holy Week is important to me. That was the point that I was trying to make. And so we've got different pastors coming on all week, and we're going to talk about different stories in the gospel, basically coming from Palm Sunday, the Mount of Olives, onto the crucifixion. And if you've got questions or comments, you're certainly willing to do it. It's kind of interesting. It's kind of a current event topic right now. Right. Because we're watching protesters. We're watching the establishment, which would have been the Pharisees, just get their clock handed to them, while some Yahoo preaching the new way is my way, which would be either Bernie or which would be Donald Trump. I mean, how much can we compare? And Jesus said, I'm not a politician. I didn't come here to be that kind of king. What does Donald Trump say? I'm not a politician. I didn't come here to become part of the establishment. I came in to make America great again. Now, I'm not in any way, don't think I'm comparing Donald Trump to Jesus Christ. I am in any way, except it's a new way. And the establishment, the Pharisees, the Jewish people, they don't like it very much.
Well, it's really fascinating, Mac. We were talking about in the first hour this video that you posted on your Facebook page. So if you're friends with Mac on Facebook, you've probably seen this. If not, go ahead and scroll through J. Michael McCoy's Facebook page, and you'll find this video that he posted of Judge Janine Pirro. It was her opening statement from her show over the weekend on Fox News, and she basically goes on this. Well, it's her opening statement of her broadcast, and she lays out how the establishment wants to continue sort of establishment reign, and Donald Trump is causing problems in that. So they're going to do whatever they can to stop that. And she says at the very end of this video, and then I said this was the thing that scared me. She said at the end of the video, from the beginning, we knew this, meaning that Donald Trump, would be a political revolution. And she warns the establishment here, and she says, be careful, boys. Be very, very careful. You don't want to make this a different kind of revolution. She threatened that the establishment, that if they don't let Trump be the nominee, basically, that they're going to get a whole different kind of revolution, one that very well might be violent and uprising amongst the people. And just this past week, just this past Sunday, yesterday, at my church, the church I attend, Westkirk Presbyterian Church, with Pastor Michael Mudloff, he's finishing through the book of Mark. We're going to wrap up the book of Mark. He's been teaching through the book of Mark, and we were at chapter 15. Specifically, Pastor Michael taught on chapter 15, verses 6 through 15, which is the scene, as we consider Holy Week. This is where Jesus has already been convicted by the religious leaders of the day for blasphemy. We talked about this actually when James was on last week, how I quoted Jesus admitted to being the Son of God, the Messiah, and the religious leaders said, this is blasphemy, we must kill them. Well, at the time, the religious leaders didn't have the authority in Jerusalem. They did not have the authority to kill anyone, so they had to go to Pontius Pilate, who was the Roman ruler there at the time.
Now think about that. Hold on. Let my 6-year-old talk here for a minute. So the religious rulers, the people that represented God, didn't have authority to kill somebody. Isn't that right? I mean, that's the way it should be. Only the government should have the right to kill someone. Well, I'm not saying they should either, but certainly the religious people should not ever stand up and say, you're going to die. Abortion, capital punishment, whatever it is, you're going to die. As religious people, we should never do that.
Well, back then, of course, they did. I mean, people got stoned. For prostitution and so forth. And
right, before the Roman rule, the people of Israel, as we talked about 2 Chronicles, during the time, you look at 2 Chronicles 7:14, the verse we were talking about in the first hour, during that period in Israel's history, they would have killed people for many things.
Breaking the law.
If you broke the law, there were certain laws that you broke, and you were put to death. That's
so I'm wrong.
But again, and I don't want to say anything overly controversial here, but that is law at a particular time, somewhat I would call it tribal law. But since Rome at this time and during Jesus' crucifixion, during the time Jesus was here, Rome was the governing body over Jerusalem, and of course there were the religious leaders at the time, and there was the Roman rule. And Pontius Pilate was the Roman ruler. The governor, and he had this tradition just before Passover that he would release to the Jews one of the prisoners that he had. One of his prisoners, he could release one of them, whoever they picked.
Now, can I ask just a question from a guy who hasn't been around a lot?
Yeah.
What was Herod in charge of?
Herod would have been higher up, right? He would have been like the king. Herod is actually a title,
right?
And so Herod is the title, right?
Pontius works for Herod.
That was his name, and they kept him in power. He was a ruler,
right?
And
so Pilate worked for Herod, or was under Herod. Nobody was above Herod,
right? Pontius Pilate was a governor. He like Terry Branstad.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not saying that Terry Branstad is
Barack
Pontius
Obama.
Pilate. Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Pastor Mudloff said that he was the Roman imposed king of the Jews.
Right. Pontius Pilate, right.
No.
Herod was
the king of the Jews.
Because he was the king of
imposed by the Romans. The Romans put him in power.
So the Romans put Herod in power as king of the Jews.
Yes.
And where did Pontius Pilate fall in that, Ryan?
He was Roman rulership, political, civil. He was separate from religious.
So you had a religious and then you had a political.
Correct.
It'd be like if Franklin Graham was the lead. Well, I suppose the Catholics would say you have the Pope and you have the President. Yes?
Yes, except that and thank you, Ryan. What Ryan pointed out was that Herod was the appointed religious leader. So he still worked for the state, or his allegiance was to the state rather than to God's word, even though he was a religious leader. He was the king of the Jews. Herod was the king of the Jews, appointed by the state, so his allegiance was to the Roman state. But anyway, so Pilate was the governor, and at this time, his tradition, and Ryan might be able to correct me at this because he heard the message too, but Pontius Pilate wasn't necessarily really liked. He was a pretty... he was a rugged ruler, okay? And so one of the things he did to kind of win favor was he would release someone. And as we come to the trial of Jesus, it was leading up to the Passover. And so Pontius Pilate went to do this tradition in a sense. And it says now in the text, I'll just read it for us real quick. This is Mark chapter 15, verse 6. Now at the feast, Pontius Pilate used to release for the Jews one prisoner for whom they asked. And among the rebels in prison... Excuse me, this is interesting. And among the rebels in prison who had committed murder in the insurrection, there was a man called Barabbas. So Barabbas was in prison. Jesus was at this time incarcerated. And Barabbas was a rebel. He was an insurrectionist, meaning he was a revolutionary. He was a violent man, and he had committed murder. So think about Barabbas for a minute as a murdering, violent revolutionary.
And who would have been his enemy?
His enemy,
Roman?
His enemy would have been the state, yeah.
Okay. So the state is letting him go.
No, he's one of the people imprisoned at the time. It's just at this point in the text...
It'd be like when Obama let the folks from Gitmo go. These people threatened the United States. We put them in prison. Now we're going to let them go.
Yes.
Okay.
Except that in the way that this story works is Pontius Pilate was not going to be the one to decide who was going to be let go. The people were going to decide. This is much like American democracy here. The people were going to vote for who they want to be freed. We had Jesus of Nazareth, who the Messiah, who is going in the story would become the Messiah. Was the Messiah, will become the Messiah, who is the Messiah, was in prison, and this guy Barabbas. And here's the interesting thing to point out, and Pastor Michael Mudloff pointed this out. Do you know what Barabbas' first name was?
Jesus.
It was. Did you know that?
No.
His first name was Jesus, which was a common
I just
name.
know how simple your mind works, and you'd think that was a big deal.
Thanks, Mac. I appreciate that very much. But that's interesting because
that was a compliment.
Thanks. I guess. So you had Jesus Barabbas. Pastor Michael pointed this out, and you can Google this. If you Google Barabbas, which is spelled Barabbas, Barabbas.
So that was his last name?
That was his last name, and Bar, B-A-R, means son of. And do you know Abba?
Abba.
Do you know what that means?
Son of God.
Son of the Father.
The Father.
Abba means daddy or father.
Yeah.
So
Jesus,
his name
son
was
of the Father.
His name was Jesus, son of the Father.
Wow.
So what you had at this time were two people named Jesus Barabbas and Jesus from Nazareth, both incarcerated, and the people needed to vote which one they wanted to be free and which one they wanted to die.
It's Holy Week, and I think it's important that we break this stuff down. And we're doing it thanks to Pastor Chris today. Bob Monster at the Cat in the Hat watching the chat. You can do it. Service Legends Truth text line 1-515-809-0993. It's your voice I want to hear on the truth.
Northern Lights Pizza's amazing garlic butter makes amazing breadsticks. Now available in 12-ounce bottles at Northern Lights, Hy-Vee, and Graziano's.
Northern Lights Pizza. I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Homs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed. Fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're going to make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
I got to tell you what he said. Oh, there we go again with the mic on. 4:38, 22 minutes before the top of the hour, 3:21. We had a interesting guest last week, and we were talking a little bit off mic. What he was talking about, we had the gentleman on Thursday. Yes, James, with Chris John. And good show. You can catch it on my Facebook. All of these shows, every one of these single shows, have I mentioned that how many is every? That means all. Every show we do is at macmccoy.com, MacMcKoy.com, or 993thetruth.com, which actually takes you to the same place. Take your mouse over shows, drop down 2 or 3 points, Max World Live, and every show back to, I don't know, 5 years, 6 years is right there, so you can watch them and listen to them. All right, so we have an interesting day going here, very interesting. This is Holy Week, as you know, and I want to talk about the Holy Week every day this week. Yeah, we may talk a little bit about politics or a little bit about news that's going on, but most importantly, I wanted to talk about the walk from the Mount of Olives on down to Jerusalem and eventually to Calvary. And I want to talk about that, and we've got different pastors coming in every day. They're taking different books of the Bible. And today, Pastor Chris is talking about this, and we're basically in Mark 15 and the trial before Pilate. And you're comparing it, which is interesting, you're comparing it to something that a popular TV talk show host said, Judge Janine, who talked about revolution.
She did, yeah. We talked about this before. You mentioned it last hour. I mentioned it a little bit this hour on your personal Facebook page, Mac, on J. Michael McCoy on Facebook. You'll find this video and you can listen to it. But she makes this comment at the end, basically that Trump we knew Trump was going to start a political revolution, but she threatens the establishment that if they don't basically put him as the nominee, there could be a different kind of revolution. And when we think about revolutionaries, not all of us think about Jesus, But very few of us, if we do think about Jesus, very few of us ever think about another character in the Bible at the same time by the name of Barabbas, is how he's referred to in the text. So if you have a Bible, if you go to the book of Mark, it's in the back half, chapter, there's big numbers throughout that. The chapters are 15. You kind of read through that. You'll see something probably in your Bible that says Pilate delivers Jesus to be crucified. But what happens in this story is that it is Pontius Pilate, who is the Roman governor of Jerusalem at the time. It's his custom to release a prisoner to the Jews before Passover during this time. It's kind of an offering to them, sort of an appeasement to them. Pontius Pilate is not Jewish. He's not a religious leader. He is the civil Roman leader over Jerusalem at the time. And he has this tradition, and the text mentions that there's this guy named Barabbas who's in prison. And Barabbas, as I pointed out in last segment, is a rebel. He's a revolutionary. He's a murderer. And his last name is Barabbas, which really just means son of the father, Bar Abba, Barabbas. And his first name is Jesus. So he says, Pontius Pilate asked the crowd. So he said, after the crowd came together.
Now, wait, hold on. You're in Mark 15.
This is now Mark chapter 15. I'm reading in verse 8.
All right.
And the crowd came up and began to ask Pilate to do as he usually did for them, meaning asked Pilate to release to them a prisoner. And Pontius Pilate answered them, saying, do you want me to release for you the King of the Jews? Now, when he says that line, he's referencing Jesus here, not Jesus Barabbas, but Jesus, the son of a carpenter from Nazareth, this other Jesus. For Pontius Pilate perceived that it was out of envy that the chief priest had delivered Jesus up to Pontius Pilate. So he believed that the chief priests, the religious leaders, turned Jesus into Pontius Pilate because the religious leaders were mad at Jesus, and so they turned him over to Pontius Pilate. So Pontius Pilate went back to the Jews of the city, the Jews of Jerusalem. The religious people in Jerusalem said, do you guys want me to release to you Jesus? The religious leaders hate him, but do you guys hate him? Do you want me to release to you the King of the Jews? And what did they say? But the chief priest, it says here, the text, the scriptures say in verse 11, but the chief priest had stirred up the crowd to have them release for them Barabbas instead. And Pilate again asked them, so in other biblical accounts, the crowd responds and says, we want Barabbas. So they say to Pontius Pilate, we want you to release for us Barabbas, not this other Jesus guy. And Pilate, in verse 12, Pontius Pilate asked the crowd, saying, then what shall I do with the man you call the King of the Jews? This is the Jesus that we all know. And the crowd cried out, and they said, crucify him. And Pilate said, why? What evil has he done? But they shouted even louder, crucify him, crucify him. So Pilate, wishing to satisfy the crowd, released for the crowd, the masses, Barabbas, and then delivered Jesus to be crucified. And here's the point. Here's how this relates. You had two revolutionaries in this story. You had Jesus, the second person of the Trinity, the Messiah, the one who claimed to be God, and you had Barabbas, who was a revolutionary against the state. Barabbas was famous for being a violent revolutionary who was a murderer. You could say a warmonger, somebody who wanted violence. Jesus is famous not for being violent. He's famous for healing people. He's famous for setting prisoners free. He's famous for healing the sick. Which one do you want? The religious leaders of the civil leaders of the day asked the crowd. Now, bring this into 21st century right now today. This presidential election here, the process is asking the crowd, who do you want? Do you want Donald Trump, who is a rebel and is violent and will take it by force? Is that who you want? I'm not saying Donald Trump is Barabbas, but I'm saying, or do you want somebody else? Who do you want? What kind of rebel do you want? You get what I'm saying? I'm not telling. I shouldn't have said the thing about Donald Trump being like Barabbas. I'm not saying Donald Trump's like Barabbas. The point here is that we've got a revolution. People want a revolution, Mac.
Yeah.
People want a Bernie Sanders. They want a Donald Trump. They want a revolution. And at the time of Jesus, people too wanted a revolution. And you got to ask, what kind of revolutionary do you want? And at the time of Jesus, they wanted the murderer, the revolutionary that was violent. They wanted the political, military leader. They did not want the quiet, suffering servant that is Jesus, the Messiah of the world. They rejected him. And I think that has a lot of implication to where we are right now. I'm not telling you that I don't think any of the people running for political office represent Jesus. So it kind of puts us in a difficult situation. But we have to ask.
I think people know that you're not trying to do that.
Yeah, but that's the thing. As Christians, we have to ask ourselves: do we want to align ourselves with somebody who is a violent revolutionary, or do we want to align ourselves with the Lord Jesus Christ, who went on to be crucified and suffer and die and take the punishment? He didn't just die for being a revolutionary. He died because he, appointed by God, suffered the death I deserve. I'm a sinful person that deserved death. I deserve to be punished. But God, in his mercy and his grace and his sovereign plan, sent Jesus Christ to the cross to die for my sin. The Bible says without the shedding of blood, without death, there can be no forgiveness of sins. Everybody that's grown up anywhere near the church who's ever heard the Adam and Eve story knows that when Adam and Eve sinned, they were cast out of the garden, and the curse was that they would die, and they did eventually die. I'm going to eventually die, but my death will not be permanent because I have repented. I've acknowledged that I'm a sinner and that I need a Savior, and that Jesus Christ is the one that died for me, took the punishment for my sin, and I have been united with Jesus Christ, and I will live for eternity with him because of the sacrificial death that he died shortly after this story here we have in Mark. This is the Holy Week where we remember Christ's sacrificial death for us. So what kind of revolutionary do we want, Mac?
Well, that's the question we have to ask ourselves. Do we want an establishment president and keep things going as they have been going? As Judge Janine kind of hinted, well, not kind of hinted, said, the Democrats and Republicans are all the same right now. They see Bernie Sanders on one side, they see Donald Trump on the other, and they have got to make sure that neither one of those guys gets in, because their job, their pay, their luxury, their cushy life is in trouble. Kind of like it would have been back in the day. We're coming back. Do you know what happened to Pontius Pilate? I'll share with that when we come back today live on The Truth. That's good, Chris.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast 1 Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Rockton Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens. Rock on. This is Pat McManus for Rockton Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
Northern Lights Pizza, your home of the tasty crust. Our garlic butter sauce now available in 12-ounce bottles at Northern Lights, Hy-Vee, and Graziano's.
Northern Lights Pizza. Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common, everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
From the RE/MAX Concept Studios. This is Webcast 1 Live.
Ten minutes before the top of the hour, Salem Radio Network News, and then Hank, the Bible Answer Man, at 1-888-ASK-HANK. Give him a call. It's a worldwide live show. We're fortunate enough to have it from 5 to 6 in the afternoon. Prime time, of course, it's 6 to 7 out on the East Coast, and it's 3 to 4 out on the West Coast. So it's nice to have Hank in prime time here. This week is Holy Week, and Mac's World is going to focus on the events of Easter. Different pastors coming in different days to relate their experiences. I would imagine they're going to talk about what their sermon is going to be for the weekend. And if you would like to come to, and I strongly suggest that you go to your church for Easter Sunday. If you'd like to see our Easter pageant, our program, service, well, I don't care what you call it, at Hope on Saturday, we're at 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. Wait a minute. Hold on. I got to check something.
And just so you know, when Mac references his church, he's talking about Lutheran Church of Hope, primarily there on the west side, just north of Jordan Creek Mall and all that, right?
1, 3, 5, 7, not 9. Just
Okay.
1, 3, 5, and 7.
That's the hour.
But we've got services at the Waukee campus. We've got services in downtown Des Moines at our Hope Downtown Church, and we've got services out in Ankeny. We've also got services in Johnston Grimes, which meets at one of the schools. So all 5 of our campuses, there will be 25 services in all between all of those campuses. But we really put an effort into, we admit it, we're a seeker church. We think if we can get you to come in and enjoy the service and enjoy feeling the presence of the Holy Spirit, not with a lot of tradition or religion, we then can hopefully get you into small groups, Bible studies, alpha classes, where we really go deep and we let the Holy Spirit do their work on you. We're Lutheran. If it's in the Bible, it's true. We have orange Jell-O on Sundays. Not really, but you know what I mean. We're Lutheran. The coffee's weak, but the intentions are strong. But we just... our production, I shouldn't say we, because I'm not a we this year. I'm because of my wife, I'm sitting this one out. But 1, 3, 5, and 7, you will walk away going, wow. I mean, that's what it's all about. So I just invite you. And if you've said, well, I've never been invited there, I don't know anybody there, you do now. And you contact me through any way to contact me that you can, and I'll meet you there. I plan on being there for most of the services. I mean, my job is, helping the parking attendants or, helping people sit. I'm just a grunt, and I'm glad to help people. But if you've never been to a Christmas or Easter service at Hope, I would strongly encourage you to do that this year. I think it'll make a difference in your celebration. All right. So Chris did a good job a little bit ago of pointing out the fact that Barab means son of. Abba means father. Son of the father was what Barabbas meant, and Barabbas' first name was Jesus. Yes, that's true. And the conflict that Pontius Pilate had. What I always thought was interesting is, I was raised Catholic Episcopalian, kind of the same thing, and we had the Nicene Creed, we had the other creed, and it was always mentioned this Pontius Pilate guy.
Yeah.
And I could never figure out why it was so important to say Pontius Pilate's name in all these creeds. What difference does it make who it was? But I learned just last year at Easter, in fact, why that is. You know why that is?
I would suspect there's lots, but why is it important?
Well, what I was told, it is the Eastern way, the Middle Eastern way, not the Western way, America, England.
Oh, sure.
It's the Middle Eastern way of making the date.
Right, dating it, yeah.
Because Pontius Pilate was the head of Judea. He was the Roman governor of Judea from AD 26 to AD 36, so for 10 years. And, of course, that would include the time of Jesus' death, which was about 30 or 33. They're not sure it's one or the other. Then what's interesting is after it was obvious that Christ had risen from the dead, as the movie Messiah or Risen, I guess, kind of points out, I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard from several people. Pontius Pilate kind of went crazy because he thought, what if I really did kill the Son of Man? What if I really did kill the Messiah, the Christ? And he gave permission to Jewish authorities to seal the tomb to make sure no one would steal the body or make false claims about Jesus coming back to life. That's in Matthew 27. But what we do know about Pilate, after his dismissal, he was dismissed in AD 36, tied to the Jesus thing. Pilate committed suicide in somewhere between 37 and 41 AD. And he went crazy because he could not face the fact that he killed the Messiah. And he became a sympathizer to all those people that he had put to death, had something to do with putting him to death, all those people that were tied with Christ. And he died a tormented man because he knew in his heart of hearts that he had done the wrong thing.
Well, you know, Mac, when I think about that, I think how sad that was for Pontius Pilate. And I imagine that there's a lot of people in their life who feel like they've done something so wicked and so bad and so evil. I've blasphemed God. I've gone too far. I've done too much. Pontius Pilate thought I did too much. I sentenced the second person of the Trinity, the Son of God. I sentence God to death. I cannot be forgiven from this. There's no cleansing. There's no way I can get better. And I'm sure that a lot of people can relate to that, and they can feel hopeless and lost in that. But if you do feel hopeless and lost, like you've gone too far, you've sinned too much, I want to actually go to the text where this happened and the way John, in the Gospel of John, reports this. And I hope this brings you comfort. This is the Gospel of John, chapter 19. So Pilate, this is the same scene. So Pilate said to him, will you not speak to me? Pilate was asking Jesus, are you the Son of God? So Pilate said, you're not going to speak to me, because Jesus didn't say anything. Do you not know, Pilate said, that I have authority to release you and authority to crucify you? Don't you know who I am, Jesus? Jesus said this, you would have no authority over me at all unless it had been given to you from above. Therefore, he who delivered me over to you has the greater sin. Jesus said there, you don't have all the authority. You're not bigger than God. Your sin isn't greater than God. You haven't sinned so much. You haven't sinned so great that you can't be forgiven. This is Holy Week. This is a time where, if you hear nothing else, hear that no matter how far you've gone away from God, no matter how much you've rejected God, no matter how much you've rejected Jesus, no matter how much you've spit in his face, you haven't sinned too much that you can't be forgiven. Jesus died on the cross so that you can be forgiven, even you.
Tomorrow, we continue Holy Week. The trip from Mount Olive to Calvary. How does it impact you? And do you know that Jesus shed all of his blood for you? Every bit of it. There's no more left. So tonight, when you look at the people in your life that you know you need to forgive, remember that as you forgive, you shall be forgiven. See you tomorrow.